Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. June 28, 2021 was a special day in Toronto and, more specifically, Richmond Hill, as the Richmond Hill GO line was extended one stop north from Gormley, a relatively new station, up to the new Bloomington station roughly 4 kilometers away. Bloomington has been in the works for years, and it's cool to be able to finally see it come to fruition, being on one of the first trains out of the new station. Now, before I get into the video, I think I need to address the elephant in the room. Bloomington GO, for all its niceties, is a parking garage with a station attached. It has over 1,000 parking stalls and no local transit service. Even GO, the station's owner-operator, will only operate 4 trips per day out of the station with trains, and only a handful more with buses. With a cost of roughly $80 million, I don't think the station is a good use of precious transit resources. A surprising amount of bus service could be deployed for a similar cost. All that said, I've tried to reconcile the car-oriented nature of this station with some of its better features, and if I'm honest, while Bloomington is far too dependent on car commuters, essentially entirely that is, there is a lot to like here. And for me, it feels like the perfect inflection point in GO's history, and I hope this station focus can explain why. If you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon, and make sure to follow me on social media for all the latest transit news. The first thing you'll notice about Bloomington if you arrive from Highway 404, Toronto's eastern north-south highway linking to the Don Valley Parkway, which the vast majority of people will, is just how large the station and garage are. The structure dwarfs everything else in the area and is nestled among the trees and ponds of the Greater Toronto Area's greenbelt. That being said, this isn't entirely bad. Bloomington fits in a lot more parking, bus bays, and more in general into a space which seems smaller than Gormley GO to the south. There's also an undeniable presence the station has, and I'm sure its visibility will draw regular highway commuters from continuing downtown on the roads, which will feed downtown transit services and reduce congestion and pollution at the same time. Also, this station is incredibly tight against the highway, with passing cars visible from most locations within the station. I will say though, the connection to the highway, which had its ramps modified to accommodate the station, is a little less direct than you might expect, as you actually need to drive down Bloomington Road, under the CN Bala sub, and GO platform, and then double back to get into the station. That being said, a quicker route to enter the station is provided for buses, which is a good move. Once you arrive within the parkade, which you'll probably do, since I doubt the 700 plus spaces in it will be completely full anytime soon, you'll notice lights above every stall. These indicate which stalls are occupied, making finding a spot easier, as well as providing data for a sign outside the garage which shows the number of available spots. You'll also notice that the design of the parkade is a little more drab than more recent designs from Rutherford and Bramalea. While this is useful, it might be even more useful if such a sign was provided on the adjacent roads and highway. All in all, the parkade is 3 levels, with 2 separate sections divided by what feels like a large open-air atrium. This reminded me a lot of some airport parkades I've been to in the past, and it also absolutely killed my cell reception, which is why I didn't post more pictures while I was touring around. From the parking garage's 2nd level, you can actually go directly onto the train platform via ramps, as the railway is on an embankment above the surrounding landscape. There are also information screens and Presto readers provided all over the place. The lower level of the parkade, as well as the upper level, are connected with various staircases and redundant elevators, which are really nicely air-conditioned. Maybe a little too nicely, as there was a crazy amount of condensation forming on their glass. However, the coolest feature, and way to access the platform and waiting room / ticket office, is via the central atrium, which has an incredible tall glass ceiling, a giant GO sign and glass wall on one side, above a walkway into the surface slot, and of course the ticket office on the other side. The different levels are also connected by ramps, which is a pretty nice touch. Easier to walk up than flights of stairs, and hypothetically really nice if you want to bring your bike with you on the train. Walking into the ticket office and waiting room, you're greeted with sweet air conditioning, and a surprisingly spacious area to wait for your train. That said, I imagine many drivers will wait in their cars, as they can access the train almost as quickly from them as from this space. Another touch that seems minor but is incredibly pleasant are the washrooms, which like those in airports don't feature doors. These sort of passive cleanliness things are exactly the type of thing we should be doing more of post-COVID, and overall, the waiting room, while small, is much more pleasant than the cramped seating limited ones in other stations. Walking out further onto the platform, you can see just how much access there is, with several walkways linking into the parkade. It's also awesome to see a substantial platform canopy which covers around 70% of the platform by my measure. The waiting rooms are heated and directly incorporated into the canopy, and there are even intercoms along the length of the platform for safety. Furthermore, the signs for train length, which usually sit muddled along the side of the platform, are hanging cleanly from the canopy. You might notice that the canopy is giant and concrete, and I concur. There is an insane amount of concrete in this station, and I'm not sure why it was used for this. Nonetheless, the attention to detail is pretty good, with a stamped wood pattern on much of the concrete, tacky or not, and wood trim pieces and landscaping finishing out the look. I want to point out that there are 3 tracks at the station. The 2 to the west are dedicated to CN, whose trains pass by with surprising frequency, while the 3rd is for exclusive use by GO and dead ends north of the platform. If you're curious how that works, the Richmond Hill line is primarily served by a yard north of Gormley, where the trains sit overnight. Hence, trains travel north into Bloomington in the morning before heading south, and they leave southbound after dropping passengers off at night to continue back to the yard. Speaking of the railways, part of the project was converting the single-track bridge over Bloomington Road into a 3-track concrete structure, with the platform also taking up part of the space. This extends the dual tracking further north along the Balasub. At the end of the day, I hope that with smart investment, Metrolinx can find a way to operate more service on the Richmond Hill line as it plans to with every other GO line, with these new stations at Bloomington and Gormley, and more track expansion to accommodate CN traffic. It would be fantastic to see bidirectional service, even just a few counter-peak trips, though I do think an hourly off-peak service is a better goal. This would serve to connect a surprising number of destinations adjacent to the line, as well as future projects like the Yonge Line extension. There's also the Ontario Northlander, the hopefully soon-to-be revived intercity rail service from Toronto to Northern Ontario. While the official plans released some time ago suggest offering a stop at Gormley, with the abundant parking, airport-like feeling, and better highway connection, I do wonder if Bloomington wouldn't make more sense, especially if more buses can connect to the station, which brings us to our next topic, the bus terminal. As it turns out, the bus terminal in the station is quite neat. There's a space hollowed out between the rail embankment and the first level of the parkade, and this leaves a long tunnel parallel to and just below the train platform. While there are 6 bus bays, only Route 61, the Richmond Hill bus, which serves the train stations when the train isn't running, serves Bloomington. Ideally in the future, bus services could be expanded on Highway 404, and perhaps intercity buses or Ontario Northlander services could meet here as well as buses from YRT. Of course, that being said, I don't think I've ever seen a YRT bus. Leaving the bus terminal and looking at the site from the surface lots, there's a nice covered walkway. This is something we should do way more often, as it provides shade and weather protection without the cost of a tunnel. In front of the station, we can see the highway traffic roaring past, and the numerous lanes of the pickup drop-off. These are actually a great feature for any station. They needn't take up much space, and they allow more people without local transit to access the station than would be the case with parking. Looking at the paving, you can see that it's actually pavers rather than asphalt, and this helps prevent stormwater runoff by allowing water to slowly seep through. Small touches like this are critical considerations for adapting us to the changing climate, whose effects are already being seen. Off to the side of the surface lots, there's actually a number of ponds, supposedly housing some deer and a beaver who made off with some freshly planted trees, as well as a number of frogs. In order to help keep the ecosystem here vibrant, tunnels were added under the oddly circuitous bus roadway to help make sure the frogs can continue to move around the area safely. We also got a very cool opportunity in being able to go up to the roof to take a look at the large solar array covering the roof of the structure. This, as well as the additional stormwater management features, helps minimize the impact of the station on the environment. As our tour wrapped up, we were taken down from the roof to the station's observation deck. Yes, there is an observation deck. It's built into the glass wall at the front of the parkade. This provided some pleasant views, though I do wonder whether it will be used in a significant way. I suppose this is where the inflection point was made clear. This station is all of what is wrong with the way things used to be done with GO. Massive car-oriented stations with expensive cosmetic treatments, all to serve just a few trains a day, and very poor local connectivity, all turned up to 11. But Bloomington is truly the end of an era. Most of GO's successful stations these days do have local transit connectivity. Some, like Rouge Hill, are shockingly well connected, and I've now lived just walking distance from a few all-day GO train stations, none of which even feature a parkade. GO's relevance in Toronto and the Inner 905 will continue to increase in a big way as services increase more and more. Once we're out of the pandemic, we should be able to see all-day service on 5 of GO's 7 lines for the first time, and 15-minute high-frequency services will likely make a comeback. All of this will drive far more ridership than even GO's successful park and ride model could, and will almost lead us to create two systems: the long-distance commuter-oriented system and the medium-distance electrified regional rail one. You can already see this with Bloomington being in many ways a relief valve for the crowded Aurora station on the Barrie line, which unlike the Richmond Hill line is receiving frequent all-day service. In some sense this is good. The previous commuter-oriented traffic can be shifted from the frequent all-day lines to the peak commuter lines, freeing up space for redevelopment at stations, more compatible with the service offered on the all-day lines. Of course, it also wouldn't be fair not to mention that Bloomington has, as I mentioned before, been under construction for a long time. From before the agency's new head, Phil Verster, made it clear that GO does not have a parking-focused future. Despite building a number of new commuter-oriented stations on the Lakeshore East and along the Lakeshore West, none of these new stations will feature massive garages, which made GO North America's largest parking provider, making this perhaps the end of the GO Parkade era, and GO loves its parkades. At the same time, while I do lament the amount of parking provided at Bloomington, the station does a lot right, from providing excellent access between the train platform and bus terminal, to providing redundant elevators, to the great waiting room and facilities, such as the very user-friendly platform canopies, and to the fantastic environmentally friendly features. Bloomington does have many of the features that we need to see expanded across the GO network in order to improve our climate resilience and reduce the impact of the infrastructure. I really hope to see GO install some of these environmentally friendly features at other stations that it's upgrading and working on. One thing I do appreciate is that GO has pretty strong standards across all of its stations, so this doesn't seem all that unlikely. I suppose then, at the end of the day, while parts of Bloomington don't exactly excite me, this does truly mark the end of the parking-oriented commuter rail operations at GO. It also showed that GO truly does know a lot of what it needs to do to create fantastic stations for the future, and that makes me very excited. And the story isn't finished. With more rail service and travel options, Bloomington truly could become a modest transportation hub. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.